friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to make a card using the brand new Lawn Fawn set Toucan Do It. So I've stamped my images out on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I will have a video out soon using the adorable jaguars as well, but today I wanted to concentrate on some of the smaller images in the set, including these adorable little toucans, and I wanted to color them in some fun colors rather than traditional black, so I went with a really dark navy blue, and I chose B34, B37, and B39 for that. I laid in a little bit of shadow with the B39 on the wings and tail and around the back side of the head. On this second one, I'm going to outline the different sections of the wing just to make it look a little bit more dynamic. And then I'm going to blend that out with the B37 for my mid-tone. And I'm going to keep a nice bit of area there for my highlight shade, which is the B34. So just carefully going over the edge of the B37 to make sure that I get a nice smooth blend. For their faces, I wanted to do something a little fun and unexpected as well, so I went with some aqua, and I picked BG10, BG11, and BG13. I put the BG13 at the bottom and then up the back side of their face, and then blended up with the BG11 and then the BG10. And then for their beaks, I wanted to warm them up a bit, so I'm going to grab some warmer colors starting with yellow. I'm using Y13, Y15, and Y17 for the first section of their beaks. I put the Y17 down at the bottom, blend it up with the Y15, and use the Y13 at the top because that would be where the sun would hit the most. And then for the stamen of my hibiscus, I used Y15 for those. I decided to add the yellows to my butterfly's wings as well, so I did the outer edges and then also the little circle on the wing. So I used the Y17 and the Y15 for the circles, and then all three shades for the wings. And then I'm going to move on to the next section of my toucan's beaks, and that's going to be orange. I used YR04, YR07, and YR09, and just colored that in the same way with the darkest at the bottom and then a little bit up the back side of their body, and then blended up to the highlight shade. And then for their feet, I just used the YR04 and the YR07. For the first tropical leaf that kind of looks more like a fern, I'm going to use YR04, R24, and R29. I wanted it to be kind of like a fiery red, something like a bird of paradise, something that would just be really different than the typical green. So I used R29 at the bottom of each leaf and then blended up with the R24 and left about a third of the space of each leaf for the YR04. So that's going to just give it that little bit of a fiery red-orange color that I was going for. And then once I have finished with my leaves, I decided to use those shades on the ends of the toucan's beaks as well. So I'm using the R29 first, and then the R24 once again, and finishing with the YR04. Next, I'm going to move on to my tree branch, and I'm using E23, E25, and E27. I started with the E27 and laid in a shadow on the underside of that branch and each of the little branches stemming off of it. And then I'm blending that out with the E25. Once again, putting my highlight at the top where the sun would be hitting the most with that E23. And then I'm going to go back in with a darker shade. I'm going to pick the E29 so that I can add a little bit of wood grain texture to my tree branch. Just doing some little lines and swirls, kind of like ripples on the surface of water or something, just to create some texture there. And then I'm going to color the leaves with the YG13 and the YG17. I also pulled out the YG11, but I didn't end up having room for it. So I just used the darker two shades, and I also colored the 3 little separate leaf clusters with those shades as well. Since I went with a more yellow-green for the other leaves, I decided to go with a bluer toned green for this large leaf. So I picked G12, G14, and G16. Doing a line down the center with the G16 and then another little line on the bottom of each section of that leaf. And then I'm going to blend that out with the G14, making sure to really go over the edge of that G16 because it is quite a step down to the G14, and I want to make sure I have a nice blend. And then I'm going to fill in the rest of the space with my highlight shade, which is the G12. For my hibiscus flowers, I wanted them to be hot pink, so I'm using RV13, RV14, and RV17. I started in the center with the RV17 so I could make them look really dark and kind of concave in the middle, and then blend it out with the RV14 and use the RV13 at the tips. And then I went back in with my darkest shade, the RV17, and just kind of deepened that up and blended it out with the RV14 one more time. And then for the second one, I just did that exactly the same, using those same shades. For the third one, I wanted it to be just a bit darker, still in the same family because I want them to be growing in the same place, but just something to set it off a bit more. So I grabbed the RV19 and then blended that out with the RV17, and then I'm filling in with the RV14. So just using those darkest 3 shades on those. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go back to my RV19 and just really darken up those centers. So for the rest of the butterfly, I decided to go with purple. That was the only shade that was missing from this kind of rainbow color palette, which is something that I just really love to do. So I picked V12, V15, and V17. And I put the darkest closest to the body in the center with the V17, blended out with the V15, and then the V12 at the edges. And then I'm going to grab a black Sakura Jelly Roll marker and go over the eyes of my toucans just to make them nice and bright and shiny again. And then I will trim these images out with their matching dies. For my background, I'm going to be using a piece of the new Watercolor Wishes pattern paper. Pattern paper is so great for making really quick and easy backgrounds. It's already got all of that texture and that beautiful fade in it. And then I also chose the rainbow polka dot. I'm going to trim the rainbow polka dot down with the outside in stitch rectangle stackables, making sure to get the part that has all of the rainbow colored dots in it. And then for the blue background, I'm going to use one of the stitch circle stackables. For my sentiment, I'm stamping in Blue Jay ink, and I'm using the sentiment that says, "Here's a toucan of my appreciation," which is really cute. I stamped that down a couple of times to get a good impression. The word toucan was still kind of light, so I used my stamp chamois to wipe off any residue from the manufacturing process and stamped it down one more time. And then I popped my card base in my MISTI. I'm using a piece of mermaid cardstock and decided to just stamp with the same color ink. I'm using the little flying toucan again and just the word thank you because I needed a quick thank you card. So now I've got all my pieces. I'm ready to start the assembly. I'm going to glue my focal panel to a piece of white cardstock just to give it a little extra stability so I can pop it up on my card. And I'm going to glue my rainbow polka dot piece to my card front. So then I'm going to add some foam tape to the back of my focal panel, like I said, so that I can pop it up and have a little bit of dimension on the scene. This is a more simple card, so I wanted it to stand out with that little bit of dimension. So there is that, and then I can bring in my images and start to decorate that. I'm going to add the tree branch first because that's kind of the center point of this little scene. It kind of divides the top half from the bottom half of the focal panel. And then I'm going to add one of these leaves because I wanted to make sure that I could cover up the end of that branch so it didn't look like it was, separate from the tree. Then I'll add my sitting toucan right on that. And the one that is flying is going to be coming in from the right hand side there. So he's kind of flying to meet his friend or his mate. And then I'll take my other leaf and I'm going to add that down toward the bottom. I'm going to leave a little gap in the middle because I've got 3 of these hibiscus flowers to put there. And I don't want to cover up too much of the leaves. I want them to be showing as much as possible to kind of fill in that bottom area. So the part where the 2 stems are kind of overlapping is going to be covered completely by those. I put the darkest one toward the top just to separate it out a bit. And then I'm going to tuck these 3 little separate leaves beside each hibiscus. So each one will have one little leaf cluster. So I'm just breaking up the pink by adding those little pops of green in there. And so I'll just tuck this last one underneath the final hibiscus and then add my butterfly down at the bottom right side to kind of fill in that space. I have trimmed down my sentiment with one of the everyday sentiment banners and added some foam tape to the back of that, and I'm going to pop that down on the bottom of my card right below the focal panel and press that down into place. And then of course I have to finish with a little bit of stardust stickles, which is my favorite embellishment. So I'm adding it to the stamen of my hibiscus and also to the outer edge of the butterfly's wings and the little circle on the wings as well. So just a little bit here and there, not too much. There's a closer look at all of the detail and another peek at the inside. If you're watching this the day it goes live, it is release day for Lawn Fawn, so all of these are brand new products. You can find the links down in the description bar below, so you can head on over and shop to your heart's content. If you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I invite you to do that. Ring the notification bell. I post new videos every Monday and Friday. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.